Paltrocast.
I want to congratulate you on your excellent, excellent book. It's something that I was hoping somebody was going to write for years. In your case, did it take you years to put it together?
Okay, well, let me explain this to you because you're the first interview I'm doing about the book. Okay, the publisher, Tony Norman, in England, who approached me with the book. He's done some amazing books. He did one called about black movie posters, and a friend of mine collects movie posters, and he did one on Led Zeppelin and Queen. A magnificent publisher. Okay,
I love Real Art Press. I'm very familiar with their work. I have a lot of their books.
Cool. All right, so you know his capabilities and everything he does. Beautiful. He's the one that called me, and and maybe I shouldn't say this. It's actually his baby, not mine. He called me up, and he said that he's publishing a book of famous Jewish comedians, and would I be interested in writing the foreword? Like, of course, I'd be more than happy to write it. I think the foreword came out really well. I rewrote it 12 times. Anyway, he had a list of comedians, and with all due respect to Tony, being English, I grew up with the tail end of the Catskills, but being a comedian, I'm well versed in the whole, comedic, everybody that's been involved in the business from vaudeville to the Yiddish theater, just because I've studied it because I'm a comic. But I also grew up in the 60s with Ed Sullivan. So I would see Shelley Berman and Mort Saul, and I would see so many comedians, from Alan King. I mean, dozens and dozens of them. So I really knew about comedy. So Tony sent me a list of some of the comedians he wanted to use. I don't know if he considered that a complete list, but first of all, I looked at the list, and some of the comics weren't even close to being Jewish. And I said, wait a second. Even though this is not technically my book, I really need to help him because I don't want people thinking it's my book. Some of the names he had on there, I mean, Jonathan Winters, Robin Williams. I go, Tony, don't you have a computer? These people are not Jewish. Let me get you a list of the Jewish comedians. Now, again, since I grew up watching so much comedy as a kid, there were comics that I knew had to be on there. Like Shecky Green, who wasn't on there. And I don't think Shelley Berman and David Brenner was on there. I don't think he had Robert Klein. Anyway, and then, of course, he had Joan Rivers. But I said, there were also these other women. There's Fanny Bryce, if you went back to vaudeville, but there was also Tony Fields, who was a groundbreaking comedian in the 60s, along with Joan Rivers. And, Tony, like most people, had never heard of them. So what I did, like I said, technically it's not my book, but I said, I've got to take matters into my own hands. I've got to really go through a list of comedians. Now, being a small book, it's not a comprehensive book because if it was, this thing would be the size of a Webster's dictionary. I couldn't include everybody. Tony said, look, the book, we have limited space. So we got to pick our comedians carefully. So I was trying to pick comics, from my generation, but comics that influenced me and comics that influenced those comics, and for example, Tony had people like Gene Wilder, a brilliant comedic actor, but he's not a comic. If you're going to start going there, I love Zero Mostelin because Zero was an actor, but he started out doing stand-up in vaudeville. So then I wanted to pick comics from my generation. And there were guys that I always loved, friends of mine, like Dave Attell. Now, the other problem was Tony, being the publisher, like I said, is his book. He wanted 4 quotes for each comic. Right. So some of the comics that I loved were one-liner comics. Erwin Corey, Professor Erwin Corey was not a one-liner comic. He was just a goofball.
You know what I mean? Did the best you possibly could with those quotes.
Well, wait, was Erwin Corey, was he in there? I don't know if he, I don't think I
he didn't make it, but Kaufman did.
Okay. Well, Kaufman, but again, some of the comics, you could go online and Google and find one-liners, but in print, they weren't that funny. A perfect example is Steve Landesberg, who was one of my favorite comics when I was growing up, friends with Albert Brooks. And these guys all started out, this generation of comics that I admired. But Landesberg was more of a storyteller. So I actually had to Google Merv Griffin clips and Mike Douglas clips and try to pull lines out. Then there were a couple of guys like my friend Robert Schimmel, who passed away, who I totally forgot about. And then I had to decide, do we want Gary Shandling or Bob Saget? John Lovitz is a great friend of mine, one of the funniest people ever, but there weren't great one-liners. They didn't have room for him unless they took out Henry Youngman. So, I put a lot of people in there, and then I forgot a few people. And, Tony wanted Fran Lebowitz, who to me is not even a stand-up comic at all, but she's very Jewish, very funny, has a lot of great one-liners. So, we had to compromise and figure out who would fit into this book.
You've answered so much right there.
I know. I have to go now. I figured we were done. Okay. No, but once I'm on a roll, because it killed me that I forgot a few people. Myron Cohen was the guy who was a big Catskills comic, but more of a storyteller. But I put Freddie Roman in there. I had Buddy Hackett in there. you know. I had guys, you know, Sid Caesar, Carl Reiner. I think it's not a comprehensive book, but we really I had to have Elaine Boozler. So it tortured me to leave out people, but there were people I felt that were iconic and important. And, you know, I wanted more women, even though my comedy's always been called sexist, but there were women comics like Fanny Bryce, or like Another Generation, like Elaine Boozler and Joan Rivers that had to be in there.
Was Dice left out on purpose?
Totally forgot about him. You know what? I totally forgot about Dice, and I totally forgot about Richard Belzer. And one of the reasons was because when Tony came to me, I was so overwhelmed by the people that were in there that didn't belong in there. And not that they weren't funny or Jewish, but then there were people that I really needed to put in there. And I went online and I Googled list of Jewish comics, list of the most famous Jewish comics. And I went to 3 or 4 lists. I was on 1 or 2. I don't think Robert Schimmel was on 1. Then there were guys like Mark Schiff and Larry Miller and Wayne Fetterman, people you might not even know. I couldn't get every comic that plays a Comedy Store, or like I said, it would be an encyclopedia. And what Tony wanted was more, not a comprehensive list, but just a nice cross group of people, you know, that we could try to get a little bit of every generation and every, you know, every kind of group in there. But there, you know, the one guy I love, Georgie Jessel, who most people didn't know about. He had to be in there. He was an important comic in the 50s, but he was more of a roast master. So it was hard finding lines for him. So I spent time online. And Jerry Lewis wasn't a one-line guy, but he was a great comedian and really, really Jewish. Jerry Lewis, you couldn't do the book without him.
Yeah.
And Shecky Greene, he had to be in there. Yeah. So it was almost as exhausting doing that as it is talking to you.
Well, I think in your defense right here, if this book is successful, which it should be, then there's the excuse for volume 2, which then you could put the Zucker brothers and Lorne Michaels and Sandler and.
Did you say Lorne Michaels?
Lorne Michaels, yeah.
Is he Jewish?
Oh, he's very Jewish.
But he's not a comic, though.
You could argue, I mean, the amount of comedy writing he did for other people, he might have done an on-screen thing or two.
Okay, well, again, this book is comedians, you know, and you know, I forgot how it goes, but the difference between a comic and a comic says funny things, a comedian says things funny. Maybe I got it backwards, I don't know. But there were some guys like that crossed over. Like Sid Caesar wasn't really a stand-up comic, but he was a comedian and he belonged in there. Ed Wynn started out in vaudeville, I think, doing stand-up because they did a lot of research on these guys. And Ed Wynn, there were guys we left out, Carl Ballantyne, McHale's Navy. He started out doing that whole magic thing. I couldn't find a lot of good lines for him. There were a few guys that I just couldn't find those 4 lines that Tony wanted that I thought were funny. There were lines I found from comics, but you go, well, that's not. He wanted funny lines, not just a comic going, you know, I pay high taxes and I hate Trump. And, okay, that's not what he was looking for. He was looking for political statements, and he wasn't looking for, you know, wanted stuff that was funny. So I tried to do the best I could.
But then the polar end of that is that some of the comics in the book get 2 pages. They got 8 lines.
You know what? It's funny. I didn't even realize that. You know, Tony had sent me the book. He goes, why don't you proof this again? And I went through it 2 or 3 times. And not till I got a copy of the book did I realize that Henny Youngman had 2 pages and 2 pictures, which is great because I love him. Rodney Dangerfield, 2 pages, 2 pictures. Easy to find lines. See, those are guys that are easy to find lines for. Gary Shandling, who I loved, had 2 pages. And I'm thinking, well, if each one of those guys had 1 page, then we could have got in some of the people I left out. But again, like you said, volume 2. Right,
volume 2.
Exactly, Darren, exactly.
Dice gets to be in there. Pauly Shore. I mean, you got Paulie's dad in there at least.
No, you know what? Sammy Shore is only in there. I think I mentioned him in my forward.
In your intro.
In my intro.
By getting them in the intro, technically got him in the book.
Well, no, but the thing about Dice, and I'm sure I could have pulled some good. Again, he has those dirty one-liners. I probably could have found good stuff for him. But again, when I was looking at all those lists, his name wasn't on there. And I kept sending this to Tony. Okay, I think I'm done. You know, I forgot Shecky Greene. Okay, I think I'm done. A few days later, you got to put Tony Fields. Is it too late? And I kept adding more names and more names. And then he told me we just don't have any more room in the book because it is called a small book of Jewish comedians.
Yes,
you know?
It is. So a cool my favorite part of the book is not just the one-liners, not just the fact that you put the real names of the people, but your introduction. And I'm very familiar with your career, but you talk about some of your interactions with people featured in the book. You gave Rickles his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Montreal Festival.
Well, if people really want it, people really care, they can buy the book and read it. No, but you know what I wanted to tell you? The one thing Tony did that was brilliant. I said, you know, the Ritz brothers and the Marx brothers and the Three Stooges were all Jews. They should be in there. Now, the Three Stooges, I don't think you'd be able to find any printable lines that are funny. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Hey, but what he did was brilliant by putting the three Marx brothers, the three Ritz brothers, the Three Stooges, and then my friend John Kish's photo of the three of me. I love that. Okay. But you know what? I am 66 years old. So when I started doing stand-up in the 70s, I was, 21, 22. And over the years, I got to meet some of these guys. Mort Saul, who just passed away.
Yeah.
I didn't put him in the intro. He just didn't fit in. He's in the book. But he lived in my neighborhood. And there's a little shopping center right up the street. It's a little teeny shopping center with a Starbucks, a Jewish deli, a little grocery store, a couple of restaurants, and a dry cleaner. And so I would always go up there for coffee. And Mort Saul would be sitting at Starbucks every day across from, Paul Stanley from Kiss. And I'd always see all these different celebrities. I see John Voight up there all the time. It's right at the top of Beverly Hills and Sherman Oaks. So, but anyway, I see Mort, and he'd always invite me for coffee. And I said to him one time, we should have lunch sometime. And I didn't really want to call Mort Saul. He was Mort Saul. He was a legendary giant. I was a young comic, and I called him up, and he invited me to Warner Brothers studio where he had an office. We had lunch, and I kept thinking beforehand, what am I going to talk to Mort Saul about? I don't know. I'm an idiot. I know nothing about politics. But I did, and I don't really want to talk about Kennedy and the Cold War. That was, a couple of decades ago. And so I thought about all the mutual friends we had in San Francisco and all the clubs we played, and we talked about comedy, and it was great to have lunch with him. But I'll tell you a great story. This is really funny. Buddy Hackett. Okay. So I didn't do a lot of those Friars Club roasts. I'm not talking about the Comedy Central ones you see today.
Right.
But,
the original ones Friars that Comedy Central got too cheap to pay for and created their own. Yeah.
Right. But it started out at the Friars Club.
Yeah.
And they would do them usually. They started at the Friars, and then they would do them at the Hilton Hotel. And when I was a young comic, there were guys of my generation that belonged in there more than I did. They had the old guys, the old guard. They had Red Buttons and Milton Berle and who else? Shelley Berman.
Gregory would do them.
They would all do them, right? But then they would have guys. I don't know, maybe Seinfeld or Bill Maher, whatever. They got comics of my generation that were a little bit more famous. I don't know exactly who did it, but I went to a couple. I go, I should be up there. Well, Bill Maher's done more than me, or whoever did them. So finally, they started asking me to do a couple. And I roasted Hal Roach, the Little Rascals, Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah.
Like his 100th birthday. It was a thrill to be there. And I roasted Larry King. But when we roasted Hal Roach, I felt like, okay, I was probably 30 years old. I thought, who am I? When these roasts started out, Frank Sinatra making fun of Dean Martin making fun of Don Rickles making fun of Ronald Reagan. They were all peers. They were all friends. They all knew each other. They had a great body of work. Who am I, some schmuck who did the Gong Show and North Crosby's Comedy Shop, making fun of this iconic, legendary 100-year-old filmmaker? Well, I'm in no position to make fun of him. I'm in no position to make fun of even Milton Berle. I'm not their peer. You know what I mean? So I felt a little awkward doing it. So I think it was a Larry King roast, and I'm making fun of, and I wanted to go in early because I don't want to follow all these giants. And then the chance of somebody using one of your jokes or a similar joke, shit, I have 5 lines here. This is going to kill me. So I went on, and I'm doing fine. And Buddy Hackett is on the dais, and he's sitting next to me. And he steps on my joke, or he said something that had a bigger laugh than me. It didn't bother me. I was a professional comic. I was opening for rock and roll bands. I'm used to being heckled and people giving me crap because God knows I dish it out like nobody can.
Yeah.
So Buddy Hackett said something that was very funny, and it didn't bother me whatsoever. But he calls me the next day, and I didn't really know Buddy. And he wanted to apologize for stepping on my joke and ruining my laugh. And I go, Buddy, it's fine. That's what these roasts are. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. He goes, I'm really sorry, and I want to apologize. If you really care, you can take me out to lunch. What do you think of that? And Buddy goes, sure, I'll take you out to lunch. Okay. So here's where the story comes in. I'm sorry to drag it out. I just don't want you to get it.
Any story from you is a good story. Keep it coming, Mr.
Okay. All right. So Buddy Hackett, I remember, I was a vodka drinker. I still am. But, when I go to clubs, you have a drink or two before the show, a drink or two after the show. And, before you know it, you finish the 4-day run, and it's a bottle or two of vodka. And even though I was working out and taking vitamins, I needed a break from the vodka. And I was going to the gym every day, and it was my 5th, 6th day without drinking, and I felt great. So Buddy Hackett says to me, we're going to go to lunch. Why do you come to my house beforehand? You didn't live very far from me. Come to my house, and you can follow me to the restaurant. I remember saying to him, well, why don't I just meet you at the restaurant? He goes, oh, you'll never find the place. It's way down in Chinatown or Koreatown. And it's my favorite Chinese restaurant. Just come to my house. Come to my house at noon, and you can follow me there. Okay, that's kind of odd. So I go to Buddy Hackett's house, and him and Louis Nye, the great, who also was not in the book, great Louis Nye, they're sitting in his living room. It's a beautiful sunny California day, and the shades are drawn like they're in a hideout. It's like a hideout, and they both have big tumblers of what I thought was water. It turns out they're drinking vodka. And Buddy's house is all white. You think it'd be somebody's grandmother's house, and you have Rolodexes with all the pictures and everything he's done right there in his living room. And Buddy Hackett says to me, "John, what are you drinking?" And that's the same as my Jay Leno impression, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good impression.
I said, well, what are you guys drinking? He goes, we're drinking vodka. And it's noon. I said, well, I usually drink vodka, but I haven't been drinking for 5 days. Maybe I'm fine. Maybe just a glass of water. Yeah, have some vodka. And he pours me this giant tumbler of vodka, which I proceed to take a sip or two. I don't want to be rude. Not going to turn this down. Anyway, I said to Buddy, it's 12:15, 12:30. We should go to the restaurant. And he goes, why do you follow me? I go, Buddy. He goes, I got to feed my dog. I got to go to the bathroom. I go, just give me the address of the restaurant. He goes, this is like a Chinese place that you've never seen. It's the best Chinese restaurant in LA. So I figured it's one of these fancy foodie joints in Beverly Hills. You know, you can be sitting next to Sean Connery and Sidney Poitier. He gives me the address. I go, this doesn't sound like it's very close. It's like in Koreatown. And Buddy goes, if you want to follow me, he goes, you know what? He goes, you're not going to be able to follow me. You're right. I drive too fast. You better go ahead of me. You'll never be able to follow me. I mean, really? I don't know if he's drunk or crazy or what, but I'll never be able to follow. So I get in my car and I drive as fast as I can to show him that I can beat him to the restaurant. And I'm speeding, which I never really do. I'm making every light, and I get to that restaurant in record time. And right behind me, there he is. And he said, yeah, I'm sorry I'm so late. I had to feed my dog and take a leak or feed my cats or something. I'm going, if this guy had to take a leak and feed his cat before he can, and I was driving 80 miles an hour, making every light through Beverly Hills, risking my life. Anyway, we go into the restaurant, him, me, and Louis and I, and his picture's all over the wall, you know. And I go, okay, this place is going to be special. I go, Buddy, I'll let you order, because I figure there's dishes here that, like when you go to a restaurant with Chinese people, they know what to order. You know, they speak in Chinese and stuff you don't know about. So Buddy all of a sudden starts ordering wonton soup, an egg roll, beef and broccoli, the same crap you get at P.F. Chang's or any other place, you know? But it was such a special place because his picture's all over the walls. But it was fine Chinese food. But why we couldn't go in our neighborhood to a nice, clean Beverly Hills restaurant, order the same food for a couple bucks more because his picture's not on the wall. That's what, you know. But there was nothing special about it. It's the same stuff my parents ordered in 1969 at Tung Sing in Scarsdale.
You know, that's a great story. And I'm trying to think if I'm having deja vu, if I heard Jay Moore steal that story and tell something very similar, which he has done before.
Well, I wouldn't think he stole it because I never really told it on stage. I would think that Jay Moore probably had lunch with Buddy Hackett and he drove really fast to get there. I've heard that Buddy was a lunatic. And not only did he drink, but he had like a 44 Magnum under his car seat, a bottle of booze. I mean, I've heard stories about him, but he was always nice to me. And, you know, he's in that book telling me just do what you do. You know, and everybody telling me you have to work clean. And Buddy Hackett was not really a clean comic by any way. So to me, it wasn't always about clean or dirty. It's just do what you do. You know, people always call me like, oh, Slayton's blue. Because I used a few 4-letter words and did a couple of racial jokes. And people like to pigeonhole you. But what am I going to do? I don't care. I'm semi-retired now, so I don't really give a rat's ass. I don't care.
Your career intrigues me on so many levels. First, that you found...
It intrigues me, too. I'm not sure if there is a career there. I'm not sure. If you look at my acting reel, it looks like I've done a million things, but there really is not much on there.
Hey, I watched The Mind of the Married Man. I saw Bandits, etc. I'm familiar with your catalog right there. But you kind of, you know, New York guy who eventually went west. Right. You did Vegas at the beginning. You did Vegas at the end as well.
Right.
The Hooters Residency was very innovative, I thought. You had that cool video package where you had all the comedians talking about how
that was brilliant on my part. I don't know if anything else I've ever done is brilliant. That was brilliant because I knew when I went to Vegas, the clubs were kind of drying up for me. They were starting to do younger comics, and there was so many comedians that there wasn't that much work. And I have a house where the wife wasn't working and a kid going to school, and the usual stuff that people have living in the suburbs, the swimming pool, the gardener, and the usual crap. So when I got to Vegas, Hooters was paying me pretty well. But here was the thing: Hooters was right off the Strip, and on the Strip, the comics of my generation who started that residency. The first one I think was Rita Rudner. And her husband was a brilliant marketer. So Rita went in there, great comic, who's in the book, by the way.
Yeah.
And Rita did very, very well because she brought something to Vegas that wasn't there before. It was a different generation of comics. Excuse me, let me take some water here. This is your only chance to talk. You don't get a lot of chances. This could be it. But Rita, so she went in and did very well. Just different. There was the Cirque du Soleil shows and, all the old guard shows. And then George Wallace, another one of my peers, went in. And George was doing that. He did great. And then Carrot Top went in, and Louis Anderson went in, and Roseanne and Louis was switching off. Okay. So by the time I went in, if you don't know Vegas, Hooters is right off the Strip. Mm-hmm. And right a block away is this triangle of the MGM, New York, and
Paris?
The Pyramid Place where whatever it's called. Where Carrot Top was. So Carrot Top was there. Roseanne or Louis was over here. And over at the MGM was either Robert Williams, Louis Black, wrestling. There was something big, David Copperfield. And so I'm off the Strip. Between the Strip and Hooters was a street that was broken glass, and once in a while a hooker and a meth addict. So it was going to be hard to get locals or anybody to come in. I figured I would get locals because they hate the Strip. So that's what I went for. And Hooters had a great publicist. And I got up and I did every radio show, every TV show. The press really started to like me because I nurtured that situation. And me and a couple other comedians decided at least once a month to have a lunch with the mayor, Oscar Goodman. And it would be me and Carrot Top and Penn, Gillette, whatever comic was in town, Lenny Clark or, Gilbert Gottfried or Don Marrera. It was always David Brenner and Sammy Shore. We'd have this big lunch and it would always make the paper and the gossip columns. And I'd invite Tommy Smothers. Anyway, the point being that I knew I had to do something to bring people into Hooters. And because nobody was coming to see me. I'm not that famous. Who's rushing to go to Hooters? And I called Rita's husband, who said, look, there's only so much you could do now. Everything's been done. You can go to all the concierges in the hotel, give them free tickets, and do stuff like that. So I would try to come up with brilliant marketing plans. And I would go there with CDs and say, Bobby Slayton, and I give them a little press kit. And then my other genius thing, besides the video, since they call me the pit bull of comedy, I said, I wonder somewhere online, they got to make chocolate dog poop. I bet you they make it. And they do. They make it. They make chocolate dog poop. And I said, I'm going to go to Michael's Arts and Craft Supply and get those Chinese takeout boxes. And I found them with little bones on them. And I'm going to put that Easter grass in, Easter grass with the poop in the middle of the grass with 2 tickets to my show. And I give them to every concierge. I spent, whatever, $300-400 on chocolate dog poop. And I go, and I'm not saying it was, it got me press. And getting any press in that town is great. And they were sending people to my show. And then I did that video you were talking about. I thought it'd be really funny if I could, and I hate calling in favors to anybody for any reason. And I thought, besides having an opening act, I'll make a video. So all these people that come in, if they don't know me, whoever's in town, between Jay Leno and Bill Maher, the Smothers Brothers and David Brenner, everybody was friends of mine. Mm-hmm. And I would send a camera crew over, and Hooters paid for it. They were very generous. And we just filmed them for 1 minute. What do you want to say? John Lovitz. It's part of the video is on my website, BobbySlayton.com. But the video itself was like 10 or 15 minutes. And we'd show it as people were, ordering their drinks and settling in. And it was just great, And I was there for 2 years working there. But I don't think you finished asking your question. You said, I started in Vegas, I ended in Vegas, and there's something else about, the mind of the married man, right?
Yeah. Well, in general, I'm saying your career is it's very intriguing to me because you're a big music guy. I mean, they call you Yid Vicious, of course, right. But I would equate your career to basically being like a Steve Lukather from Toto, where it's the kind of thing where he knows.
I hate Toto, but okay.
Now you can hate Toto, but then when you know all the stuff that Steve Lukather played on, you go, oh,
I know his right, okay, yes.
He played on Thriller. He played on all the biggest things. He knew all the people. He was Eddie Van Halen's favorite guitar player, but most people go, Steve Lukather? I don't know who that is. It's your case where you were always a working comic who was a comics comic. Everyone who was in the industry went, I love that guy. He can host this thing. But then the average person, like, you could walk down the street. So in other words, it's this weird kind of thing where it's success, but under the radar, long-term, 30, 40 years.
Well, it's even a better example, or as good as the guy from Toto. I'm sure you saw the documentary, The Wrecking Crew.
Oh, yeah.
And I just watched it again with my girlfriend. And it's amazing. And I forgot, not only Hal Blaine, this great drummer, but all of those musicians who, not only played on the Beach Boy albums, that was them playing. The Beach Boys didn't play on most of their records. Correct. It was the Wrecking Crew. And people used to give the Monkees crap. Oh, the Monkees don't play their instruments. Well, a lot of those people did. They did live. It's not that they couldn't play, but the Wrecking Crew was better, It even happened with the Rolling Stones, the late, great Charlie Watts, that, Jimmy Miller sit in on a couple of songs where either Charlie wasn't there or couldn't play it correctly.
Yes.
So, everybody has people sitting in and then playing with them who sometimes go, I think now they get credited more, but all those, the Wrecking Crew, and I wish I was as talented as them, but those guys, talk about under the radar, you mention any of their names. And if I wasn't such a amateur, musicologist and didn't watch so much of this, nobody knows who they are. And there's something, that guy.
Not just Hal Blaine, Tommy.
And how about Standing in the Shadows, the Motown thing? And 10 Feet from Stardom with, Lisa Fisher, who's with the Stones. So, all these people, the musical equivalent of, I haven't done nearly what they have done, but there's a lot of people in showbiz who are well-respected. I like to think I am.
For sure. And
who've made a living. And you know what? Things are good right now. Look, there's a lot of comics, a lot of actors. Like, I wish I had his career. And then you hear about these people. 2 divorces, alcoholism, cancer. They were beaten as a child. I had none of that. So, I'm not going to say, I wish I was as famous as Kevin James. I wish I was famous as this guy. You know what? It's not all about that. I'm paying my bills. I'm healthy, Went to the dentist the other day, no cavities. At 66, I'm rocking. I'm rocking here.
Do you have time for 2 or 3 more topics, or you got to go?
Where am I going?
Well, I don't know. You might have a brilliant thing to write. You might be.
You know what? I don't look. I'm doing a gig next week. My first look. Since COVID hit. Before COVID, I wasn't working for a few months, and then when COVID hit, nobody was working, and I didn't really. And then comics started working again. They were doing Zoom shows, and they were doing shows in parking lots with masks, people in their cars. You know what? And nobody's called me really to do that many shows anymore. So I went back to the Improv in LA to do 15 minutes to see if I can still do it. Because it's not like riding a bicycle. Oh, you get it. It did come right back. But and then I did a private gig in Vegas a few weeks ago. I opened up for Gilbert Gottfried in Vegas last week just to see. And it was great. I'm going to do one more show in Brea here in Orange County in a week or 2, and then I'm not really going back to stand-up. I don't really want to do this anymore. When you said you have something, you know what I do? I go out to lunch with a few friends. I cook a lot. I swim a lot. Not a lot. I'm not Johnny Weissmuller, the name from the past. But I work out. I bang my drums, and I find plenty of crap to do in my house. I don't really want to go back and Quentin Tarantino calls. Yeah, I'm not doing any more auditions. It was a horrible process. I couldn't sleep for days if I knew I had an audition. All those things you saw, Bandits and Mind the Married Man, I was basically playing myself. And both Mike Binder and Barry Levinson, who directed that movie, they pretty much let me do, if you look at my whole acting career, it's me doing me, But to go in a little room with 5, 6 people staring at you, it doesn't bother me being in a Vegas showroom with 500 people, but that's easier. But 5 people looking at you, they see either the minute you walk in, either they hate you or they like you. I did Curb Your Enthusiasm last season. And my biggest regret about doing that show was I wanted to do it for 20 years. And they finally just called me up. And then they killed me in 5 minutes. But it was such a thrill doing that show because 80% of it is ad-libbed and made up.
Yeah.
And since I knew Larry and Jeff Garland, Susie Essman, I knew everybody on the show, Richard Lewis, and I did my first pilot with Richard Lewis back in, I think, 88. So I knew everybody. So we're sitting in a restaurant, just, BSing around, and it was great. And it was so depressing leaving. So this is what the show I want to be on, but whatever. At least I got a chance to do it,
So much that you just said is the sign of success right there, that you've got to be on that thing. Those are your peers, the people that you came up with and stayed friends with for 30, 40 years. You were on a TV pilot, etc. So no one's going to dispute the success. So
well, to show you how unsuccessful I am, the biggest thing I've done in 2 months is your stupid show. That's how bad things are. This is what do you do? I'm doing Darren's show. Yeah, we're doing a Zoom call. That's the biggest thing I have. But here's the story of my career. So, and this has happened so many times. So my first pilot, for years I wanted to do a pilot. That's a big thing. You come to LA, you do a pilot, and the chance of the pilot going is slim. And it became more slim over the years because they started doing more pilots and picking up less shows. But when I did it, I don't know how many pilots. I did 40 or 50 a year, and then they pick it up. And if the show wasn't a success in 2 months, they almost dropped Star Trek and The Odd Couple. And I could go on with a million shows that Seinfeld almost didn't make. And that was a fluke. So who knows how many great shows slipped under the radar and just disappeared. So my first pilot, which I finally got, it was like the Johnny Carson show. When I finally got the Tonight Show, Johnny Carson, the guys I started out with, Dana Carvey, Kevin Pollak, they'd all done it half a dozen times. Right. Everybody, Jerry Seinfeld, Bill Maher, they all done it. So I finally get the show. And I guess early 90s or something. And I passed the audition, and they're going to put me on the show. And they called me and go, Bobby, would you like to do the show next week? And I said, yeah. And they go, well, the guest host is McLean Stevenson, guy from MASH. I said, you know what? Look, with all due respect, this could be my first and last Tonight Show. I don't want to do it with McLean Stevenson. I want to hold out for Johnny Carson. They go, okay, we understand. They call me back the next day and go, Johnny Carson's actually on next week. Would you like to do it? And I go, oh my God. So I went to every comedy club in LA for 5 days and put together my 5 minutes. I wrote it down. I did it forwards and backwards. I used to write stuff on my hand because I was so nervous about forgetting stuff. And I did the show with Johnny, and it went great. And my wife was standing behind Freddie DeCorvin, the producer, and Ed McMahon, and they were bowled over. And she said, Johnny had his tie in his mouth. He laughing so hard. And I didn't get called over to the couch, but it just went great. And you'll probably find it on YouTube. I think it's there. So the casting guy, the guy put me on the show, said, Johnny loved you. Can't wait to have you back on. Start working on your next 5 minutes. And I did. And that week, Johnny Carson announced his retirement. And I called him and said, am I going to be able to give him the show? And they go, no, for the next year, we're already booked up for 3 months. Everybody and his mother, the lady who sees Jesus on a pretzel. And everybody, the regulars, the zoo guy, Jack Hanna, everybody wants to be on the show. So anyway, that was the end of that. So my first pilot was with Richard Lewis. And the guy that put me on pilot, another Jewish guy who I should have had in the book, but he wasn't that famous.
He'll be in the second one.
What's that?
He'll be in the second book.
He'll be in the second book. Yeah. Now you remind me. Was Jimmy Comack. And James Comack started out as a stand-up, and he was an actor on Broadway in the 50s in South Pacific. And he was the guy that created Welcome Back, Kotter, and Courtship and his father, and Chico and the Man. And he hadn't had a show for a couple of years, and he came to see me at a comedy club. And Jimmy fell in love with me. And he goes, I got a pilot. It's called King of the Building. You were perfect for it. It was kind of like a Sergeant Bilko. Fast-talking guy. He runs an apartment building, and he's always pulling schemes, and he doesn't work. He has $20 under the table. Hey, like Bilko.
Yeah.
And because you're perfect for this. And I get the script, and I read it. I go, I'm perfect for this. And he brings me into his office to read with the writer and producer before I even go to the network. And I was such a bad actor. Horrible. He goes, you know what? You're not going to be able to pull this off. They need a strong guy. And I went to work with an acting coach. I came back and that's better, but I don't think you can carry this pilot. We're going to give you a supporting role part. And they gave, which I was very comfortable with. I don't want to carry the pilot. So it's a lot for me to do. So they gave me a supporting role, and Richard Lewis got the part. And we filmed the pilot. It came out pretty well. Jimmy used a couple of his old cronies and comrades from Broadway. And the pilot, I think, it wasn't great, but it's better than a lot of the crap on television. But the pilot didn't go because that month, when they were picking up all the pilots, I think the president of CBS stepped down. And when the president steps down, they nix all the pilots and he had nothing to do with it. Because if the pilot's successful, he doesn't get credit. And if it's a failure, he gets the blame. So that was nixed. And then oh my God, I wanted to do so many more pilots. I was actually the voice of the Pink Panther. Here's a pilot that you can't even find this listed anywhere. Okay. You can't find it. And you can find anything on the internet, but you're not going to find anything. MGM brought back the Pink Panther. They did it. It was right after Roger Rabbit, and they wanted to have a live action, acting live action. They did it with what is it, Ships Ahoy, Anchors Away, whatever. Gene Kelly with the mouse and the dancing, and they did it with Song of the South with Uncle Remus and Zippity Doo Dah. They had done people and animal before, and then I think it was perfected with Roger Rabbit. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to do a thing where the Pink Panther jumps off the screen, comes to life. There's Charlie Schlatter and a famous actress. Her name I forget right now. Terry Hatcher. Anyway, so they were looking all over for the voice of the Pink Panther. And since he never spoke before, they were looking, I think they were going from all of it, James Bond, David Niven, Peter O'Toole, so the Ascot kind of classy, Oven Martini, shaken on stick. That's what they were looking for, I think. Yeah. So my casting, my voice agent calls up MGM and says, how about Bobby Slayton? And they go, Bobby Slayton is the last, we love Bobby, but his voice is the last voice we want for the Pink Panther. So they auditioned every busboy, taxi driver, wannabe actor, every transsexual, everybody who ever thought had a dream of show business between New York and LA. And they called back my voice agent. They said, we can't find the voice of the Pink Panther. Why don't you bring in Bobby Slayton? Just for the hell of it. And I went in and they said, your voice is so wrong for this. You'd be perfect for the Pink Panther. So I did this pilot and I was the voice of the Pink Panther. And I think it came out great. It was a cute little pilot. It was shot on film. It was really well done, very well produced. And that didn't go because I think the same thing happened with the head of the studio. It was nothing to do with me, but it was so close to going. And it didn't. So, the thing with showbiz, like I told you with Seinfeld, I thought I'm sure you know the story. That show,
Tartikoff,
that show, it was a fluke at the last minute. Tartikoff put on there nothing else. They put it on. They said the show's not going to work. It's not going to last. They got crappy, reviews from the test screenings. And as we know, one of the greatest, if not the greatest sitcom in the history of television. So, the chance, I went to read for Brad Garrett's part on Everybody Loves Raymond. And I did really well. I could have pulled that off. It would have been totally different than him. He was perfect. You're not going to get better than him. But if I would have had that, you never know in this business how things. Look, I'd be angry if they said Bobby came in all coked up out of his head. He was drunk. Or Bobby came in and he cursed at the director. Sexually harassed the intern. It was all my fault. But I went in, I studied for every part. Some parts I did well. Some parts totally bombed and embarrassed because I couldn't read. I wasn't good at it. But I came close to a lot of parts. And I wind up doing your little Zoom show. This is what it's come down to. I should have been drunk for this. Nobody would have cared. But I want to tell your imaginary viewers, Darren's a good guy. He knows what he's talking about. He did his research.
Well, you are a historian of comedy, entertainment, Jews, music, all this. So what I want to know is something that I've heard nobody really talk about.
Wait, before you even do that, can I tell you one more story?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Please.
Okay. Mind of the Married Man.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a show that a lot of people didn't see. It was really well done.
Okay. Premiere date, do I have it correct? September 11th, 2001 premiere date?
Yeah. It was a September 11th or the week of. It was either that day or the week of. And how did you know that? Was that in my... did you read in my bio?
I don't remember if I heard you talk about it or I just remember that period of my life watching that show and going, that was a weird time. And I looked it up today.
Not only was that show supposed to premiere, but the movie Bandits that I did with Bruce Willis, Billy Bob Thornton, and Kate Blanchett, which not very many people saw. Matter of fact, it's funny, the director, Barry Levinson, I saw him the other day up at that little shopping center getting coffee. When I told you I met Mort Solid, and I ran up behind me, the sleepover bandits are out of jail. We need to do a sequel. You understand? I want to report on this. It was great.
Is that a place by any chance? The Beverly Glen Deli?
Yeah, Beverly Glen Deli.
Okay, that comes up in so many of my damn interviews because, like, Brian Wilson, that's where he eats, like,
he ate there every day. He stopped eating there because doctor told me he couldn't drive anymore. And people, when they found out that he ate there, were showing up with things for him to sign. He would eat there. Not only would Brian Wilson eat there every day, what the owner told me was he'd eat there every day, order the same thing, and I'd see him there because I never bothered him. It's a very small little deli. He would eat there every day, order the same thing, never look up from his plate, never make eye contact with anybody. And very often, his wife and kids would go up and eat there too and sit at a different table. Very funny. Okay. But
that deli, by the way, is in the Brian Wilson documentary that, so I got to be part of this junket and like, oh, I'm going to get a question in on Brian. Cool. So I said, right. When you eat at the Beverly Glen, what do you like to get? Because I knew he would actually expand on that. And he gave me his thing. But there's a great scene when he meets Vanna White, who turned out to be a neighbor. Well,
Vanna White just owns the house 5 doors down from me. Her and her boyfriend own a house. They don't live there, but they have a house on my street. But what I was going to tell you, God, but Mind the Married Man, was that that show, when they booked me on it, they booked me to play. Okay, the head writer Rick Scheidner. Mm-hmm. They wanted a bit of mine. It was in the second episode. They wanted a routine of mine, which I can't really. It was about having sex while you're watching The Three Stooges. It was something that I did in my act. And Rick Scheidner wanted to know if they could buy the bit from me. It would fit in perfect with the show. And I said, you can just have it. I don't really do it anymore. People are giving me jokes. Mike Binder, I know for a long time. I opened up for Mike when he was. We were both young comics. I opened up for Rick Scheidner. So just take it. And Binder said to Scheidner, why don't we just have Slayton on the show doing the routine? We'll have the guys playing pool in a restaurant, and he could do the routine. We just call him Slayton. He'll play himself.
Yeah.
Which I did. And so I was on the 2 seasons we were on. I did like 7, 8 out of the 12 or 13 episodes playing myself. Now, here's what's really weird. Was that show I thought was going to become a giant hit. The first year it was on between The Sopranos and Curb. It was Sopranos, our show, Curb. Sopranos, of course, was a giant monster. Curb was doing really catching up, become a cult favorite. Our show was in between. I do radio shows, talk to people. For some reason, nobody saw that show. And the thing was, it was on Sunday nights, and we're thinking maybe guys were getting too much crap from their wives about the happy ending, cheating on the wife. How people watch The Sopranos, shut off the TV, then turned it back on for Curb, or taped them and didn't watch us? I don't know. Then they had the second season, us opening, going on before The Sopranos, and a lot of people didn't see the show. And then it went away, which is a shame because I got to play me and didn't have to do a lot of lines. So anyway, that show was going to premiere the week of 9/11 along with Bandits. And we were flying to New York. I think, and I'm almost sure, that Joe Rogan, I was going to open up for Joe, or maybe we were going to co-headline at the time because he wasn't famous. Neither of us were big then. There was a new comedy club opening by the Felt Forum in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, yeah. We were going to open. Comics, I think, on 23rd Street.
No, there's a different club. Okay. The Comics is still there, 28th, I think, or 20th, whatever. No, this is a different place right at the Garden. It never opened. But I was going to do Howard Stern and something else, and all of a sudden they canceled, the flights because it was the week of 9/11. Yeah. And I felt really bad for me. I mean, what was going on in the world was a lot more horrible than my stupid show. But I was going in with Bandits. I was going to Mind the Married Man. Yeah. And I was feeling with that showbiz, oh, poor me, until I saw people, on fire jumping out of a window from the World Trade Center holding hands. Yeah. But I got to put everything in perspective. But Bandits was another story. I know you still have a question for me. This is a great story. When I got Bandits, this is hysterical. So Barry Levinson, who was also began as a stand-up comic, him and he's part of a comedy team with what's name from Poltergeist
with Craig T. Nelson.
Craig T. Nelson.
I love that routine where they. I
don't know. You know more about comedy than I do. Oh my God! How do you know this?
Did they have the routine where he just spends like 20 minutes tuning the guitar?
I don't know. I've never seen them together. I don't know. It was before my time. I went in to read for Barry. He had seen me at the Improv. And since he was stand-up comic, he loved me. And he had me come in before Bandit. He did a movie with Danny DeVito called Tin Men.
Oh, yeah.
Aluminum siding salesman. And which Rodney Dangerfield did before he became Rodney, as I'm sure you know. Yeah. So I was sitting in the waiting room, waiting to read. and Always Uptight with Jackie Gale, who's not in the book, another Jewish stand-up comic. And Jackie's sweating. Look, I never get these parts. This sucks. I don't even know why I'm here. And he went in to read. How was it? Terrible. So I went in to read for Barry, and I'm making him laugh for 20, 30 minutes. We're talking.
Right.
He gave me a routine. He goes, I don't use this anymore. You can use it. About flying first class in the curtain. What are they in the curtain for? What are they voting? What are they trying on pants? That's a great joke. I used that for years.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking. I read for him. I didn't do good. I just didn't do good. Now I could have nailed the part and killed. He goes, what are you working on? I'm working back tomorrow. And I did. I still sucked. And I kept in there for half an hour telling him jokes. And the part went to Jackie Gale, who thought he was sucked and ran out of there. Yeah, I never get these parts.
Yeah.
So years later, I'm at the Montreal Comedy Festival, which I've done many times. And Barry Levinson's doing a movie. And he thinks I'm perfect for this part of a reporter. And I said, well, it's kind of hard to leave this festival. I'm hosting a really big show and to fly to LA and come back. I need the paycheck. I'm committed to doing a show. I really can't leave. And they said, Barry's more than happy if you put it on tape. And I said, okay, I'll put it on tape. All right. And I hired a crew. I put it on tape. I shot it really well. I did my best. And they said, Barry loved it. He wants you to come in as soon as you get back. Mm-hmm. And I went in and I read for Barry. And it was fine. This was really easy for me. And we're messing around for, again, 20, 30 minutes. I'm making him laugh. The casting director, having a good time. I didn't feel bad because all these people are waiting, And he said, don't worry about it. So I thought I got the part for sure. And they said, Barry, I'd like to see you again. Can you do a different scene? I said, well, there's only 3 or 4 scenes I have. What's funny is I opened the movie Bandits and I closed the movie. Mm-hmm. And then there were a few little scenes where Billy Bob and Bruce kidnapped me in my house and hold me for hostage, whatever. So I went back in, I did another scene. And Barry says, really good. We're talking for another 20 minutes. He's telling jokes. I'm telling jokes. I feel bad that people are waiting to read. They're sweating out there. They got things to do, So then he brought me in for a third time. And he said to me, can you do it a different way? I said, what do you want me to do it? You want me to do it in a different language? With an accent? I don't know how many more ways. I think he brought me in 3 or 4 times. And finally, I said, I don't have any more ways to do it, Barry. This is all I got. I don't know why. What do you want me to do? I ad-libbed it. I did everything I could do with this. So much I'm a reporter. How much can I do? So I don't hear back from him. And then I hear that they wanted they were deciding they might go with an English actor, they're going to go a different way, totally different way. I said, fine. And then it turns out they didn't use him. And I got the part. And they let me ad-lib almost everything, totally ad-lib everything. So I keep doing this, not doing drink. My nose is itching me like crazy. Yeah. You can leave that in. I have no allergies. I do no drugs, but my nose is stuffed up every day because I'm a Jew. Okay. You have a good nose. You have no hair. Okay. I can't even see, but I have a big belly. I got some abs, so we all have different things, Yeah. I make a living. You have no money because you have to frame everything. Okay. By the way, you can't see what do I have framed? I have some really cool stuff. You know what? I don't know how to do this. I'm really bad at this. I'm afraid, but I have on my wall. Oh. Let me show you something. Can you can't see that picture of Woody Allen, can you? Can you see that?
Oh, I can. I know about your dinners with Woody, which is an intriguing thing into it.
Well, I did a show with Woody, and I did a show for Woody. Maybe you said, did you see? Oh my God, what was it called? With the bomb. Oh my God. The TV show he did for Amazon. Crisis in 6 Scenes. Did you see it?
I know about it, I didn't see it.
What's that?
I know about it, but I didn't get to see it, unfortunately.
You know what? They hired him to do a TV series, and I know he regretted doing it. So he did. He took a movie and he chopped it up into 6 scenes. It got terrible reviews. I thought it was great. Not because I'm in it. Elaine May did her comeback. Lewis Black did something. Judy Gold. Judy Gold's not in the book. I forgot her.
She's in the second one, right?
She's in the second one. But Lewis Black is in this one. So anyway, he finally put me in Bandits, and it went great. And I got to ad-lib almost everything. And that was a thrill to do. But you saw the movie, you said, right?
Yes. And I'm aware of what Conan, the Conan incident is well related to Bandits.
When you hear about, I think the Conan incident was related to when I did the Rat Pack movie, Joey Bishop.
Oh, was that? Okay, that was
How'd you hear about that?
I don't remember if you talked about that or that was a Gilbert Gottfried talking about good stories that happen to people things.
I don't know if Gilbert would have known about what happened because nobody knew about it. I must have been talking about it somewhere. I mean, I talked about it on Howard Stern. That was one of my biggest mistakes that I ever did in my life. Besides getting married and telling my parents to go to hell when they made me go to Hebrew school. I mean, I'm talking about my professional career. I should have dropped out of Hebrew school. We'll get back to the Jew thing in a minute. But Woody Allen said the same thing. He said he never forgave his parents. My mother's 90. I still tease her about sending me to Hebrew school. It was awful. But anyway, what was I saying? We got to Woody. Yeah, the Conan story was I was flying to New York to plug the Rat Pack movie where I played Joey Bishop.
Yeah,
with Ray Liotta. And can you see that picture?
Yeah. There you go. And okay. We do have Joey Bishop in this wonderful book as well. Yeah.
HBO didn't want to use me for the part, but that's a whole nother story. It's good. This could be a 10-part show if we keep talking about all these different stories. Yeah. Okay. No, but Conan, this is a mistake I made. I flew into New York to do Conan and Howard Stern. And the night before I flew in, I was going in a day early. The night to plug the Rat Pack movie, the producer called me up. One of the assistant producers called me up and says, Conan, I wasn't planning on doing stand-up. And Conan said, he really wants you to do stand-up as well as panel. And I know now, because I've done this in the past, I should have known then. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I was getting really cocky. But if you're going to do a stand-up set, you need to go to a club and practice the set 3 or 4 times. Maybe you're not for Jerry Seinfeld, but I'm sure he does it too. You need to go in and time yourself, do it in front of an audience. And I put together a set without working it out. I sat on a plane and I timed it out, but I should have said I can't do stand-up. I need a few days to practice. And I went and did Conan, and I went out there, and it was all the studio audience, a lot of young college kids looked like from out of town.
Right.
And one of my first jokes was a New York City joke. And the producer said to me, I don't think they're going to get it. I don't know if you should open with that. He goes, it's a little late now. It's a little late now to tell me not to open with this and I went out there, the joke bombed. And then the next joke bombed. And Max Weinberg, the drummer, said, I'm a big fan of yours. So I think the band was laughing, which is one of the old showbiz things. You're dying when the band is laughing. Yeah. So the band is cracking up. Audience not laughing. I'm only doing 5 minutes. By my 3rd or 4th joke, I get them laughing and chuckling. And I went on, and Conan interviewed me. The stand-up set was mediocre because I didn't, I should have worked on it, compared to some comics I see on TV, it was brilliant because they're so bad, but it wasn't nearly what it should have done.
You're mediocre is better than most people's at their best, to your credit right here, because as you are at that point, like 20 years plus into your stand-up. So you on a bad night is still pretty good, I have to say.
Well, a lot of comics, when you see them for the first time on TV, if you're watching, Colbert or Kimmel or any of those shows, Fallon, whatever, and they say this is his first appearance on national television, give a warm round of applause. Okay. Now, many times, like myself, my first thing was Johnny Carson. If you bomb your first Carson, this is your best stuff. You must be horrible if that is your best shot.
Right.
Maybe a 3rd or 4th time, you don't have much stuff. So you watch a comic on those shows, they come in, they kill. You go, okay, well, this is 5, 10, 15 years of work for this guy, whatever. He's finally making it on TV. But if they're coming out for the first time and they don't kill, oh God, well, this guy, he's going to have to do a whole U-turn. And, but I should have known better. And then what happened on Conan, and I don't know why he got so pissed. He interviews me. The interview goes fine. And as soon as he goes, okay, we'll be right back after this, I look at the audience. I hold up 2 fingers, kidding around. I go, yeah, hey, F you, thanks a lot for your help. I was kidding around. And Conan got pissed. He goes, don't flip off my audience, They said goodnight and stormed off the stage. And I was kidding around, whatever.
Yeah.
So that was one of my highlights. But at least I'm willing to share the good and the bad.
Your career did not stop after that. I think that's the underlying thing, that you could have been bigger, but you could have been much smaller. And the thing is, it never stopped for 40. When did you start? 78, 80?
I started 55, 69. I started in 77. And I would open up in San Francisco for a lot of rock and roll bands, working for the late, great Bill Graham.
Yeah.
And, a lot of comics, Robin Williams is kind of on his way already. I mean, me and Robin started out together before. Matter of fact, there's this picture on the wall behind me. You probably can't. Well, anyway, we started out, and Robin was already on his way. He would open up for some bands when he started out, but there was Dana Carvey and Gary Bill Rafferty from Real People, and there's Kevin Paul and Dr. Gonzo. There was a bunch of people. Some of the comics just didn't want to open up for bands because you got paid $25, $50, maybe $100 after a couple of years, but that was not an easy job,
right?
And I did it a lot. But in a way, it's good because it was like Marine boot camp. They put you through the worst possible conditions, so when you're in battle, you're at least semi-prepared, or
For sure.
the most prepared you could be for that situation. It was like riding a mechanical bull. You're on for 20 minutes, 5 minutes. If you can make it that long, collect your $50, you made it.
Yeah.
So there were good nights and there were bad nights. It would work both ways.
Bringing it all together, because that's another rock and roll thing. Your loves of Judaism, comedy, rock, pop culture history, etc. I was curious if David Lee Roth was ever around the Comedy Store or anything like that in your LA era, because one thing that I had heard about Roth was the original onstage persona he had in Van Halen was very similar to Ollie Joe Prater. And that's not exactly something that you could say to everyday people. They'd go, who?
I used to open up for Ollie Joe Prater. I mean, he was, kind of a mess at the end.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was just thinking about Ollie Joe Prater. It's just a name I wasn't expecting you to bring up. Well, here's the thing. I was not a Comedy Store guy. I was an improv guy. And, the Comedy Store was there first. The improv, of course, was in New York and Hell's Kitchen. I was a San Francisco comic, even though I'm from New York. I grew up in Westchester.
Yeah.
But I never did comedy until I moved to San Francisco. So I was a San Francisco guy. There were all these San Francisco guys who moved to LA and all these Boston guys who moved to New York. And then eventually everybody moved to LA, at least for a little while. But Richard Belzer is another guy I forgot. Book number 2. So when I went to LA for the first time, I auditioned for Mitzi Shore. And my audition, I think, was okay. I don't really remember, but I was online with Howie Mandel. He had just come from Canada. We were going to open mic night.
Oh, who's not in your book? He'll be in the second one.
Oh my God, I forgot about Howie. Yeah, Howie.
And Carol Leifer. And
I love Carol. I worked with her on my dinner. Yeah. Again, Tony only had room for so many people. And I think I did a nice, a cross-section of comics. If I would have had them in, I would have left out other people, right? So I couldn't put everybody in there. Anyway, by the time I finally auditioned for Mitzi, she wasn't crazy about my act. But then again, she didn't like Jerry Seinfeld very much. Yeah. She didn't like that whole New York, fast talking style. I think it reminded her of her husband, Sammy, who, co-founded the Comedy Store, and she got in the divorce. But anyway, so I went to the Improv, which was more of a New York place. There was Mark Schiff and Paul Reiser and Jay Leno and Seinfeld and, whoever was there. So there was more of a different kind of scene. So like you said, David Lee Roth went to the store. I don't know, there were plenty of people that hung out at the Improv, but I didn't hang out there a lot. I was on the road so much. I'd go in, I'd do a set, have a couple of drinks and split. It was a very crowded, cramped little place. And so it wasn't really that much fun to hang out in,
Now I know. Well, the bottom line is the book is awesome. You're semi-retired, which bums me out because I do want to see you live in the very near future. So hopefully we get some gigs. Are there any projects that you're still hoping to do or interested? Because you were part of that weird podcast pre-formatted laugh.com.
Oh, you know about that? It was comedy, a Comedy World.
Yeah, you were in that. Do you ever see yourself doing that? Because, hey,
no.
Aren't podcasts just an excuse to talk to your old friends?
Yeah, well, oh my God, that was something else I was on the ground floor on, was internet radio. And there was a thing called Comedy World. And it was way before, Sirius XM. And it was years before that. As a matter of fact, the other went on to become, I think, one of the GMs, one of the guys that ran Sirius, actually had this Comedy World. It was all this .com startup money from Silicon Valley, I think, mostly. And they decided internet radio is the next big thing, which it is, and which it was. But they opened up, they had this giant hangar down in in the valley, down in, by Culver City, Marina Del Rey. It's one of the old Howard Hughes' aircraft hangars that went on to film movies. Anyway, they put all these trailers in there, and they gave comedians a show. And I did a show every day. They wanted me on the morning show, but I said, no, I want to be on the afternoon. And I called in a lot of favors like I did later on with Vegas. Yeah. So I called a lot of favors, and I had everybody from Alice Cooper. We all did all these interviews. Robert Englund, Bruce Willis, the legendary Ron Jeremy. I mean, it was from porn to cartoons to everybody I knew in the showbiz or fringes of showbiz or pop culture realm. And I got a lot of people. The problem was we're doing internet radio, and the only way to make money on it is to sell ads, but nobody was listening. So they were running fake ads just to time out the show until we get real sponsors. And I don't think they got more than one or two or any sponsor. And we're supposed to take a lot of calls. We'd have friends call up. It wasn't real. It was we tried to make it. Like with Albert Brooks, I don't know if you saw the first episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where he fakes his death so he has a funeral. It was on the other night. But it was that kind of thing where we were trying to make this real, but nobody's calling in. We have no sponsors, and they're paying us, at least me, a lot of money to do this 2-hour show that nobody listened to. So by the time that was done, look, I've done a million shows, not as great as yours, but I did 40 years of working on the road, doing morning radio, some of it fun, some of it not fun. A lot of great morning rock stations, a lot of horrible hip hop and top 40 idiot stations that fat soccer wives listen to, soccer moms, and then I have to do 2 shows at night. I'm burnt out of this crap. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to. I used to do a podcast. A million podcasts out there. And if I would have got in on the ground level when Gilbert did and Mark Maron did and Joe Rogan did, but I thought even by then, I was on the road every day. I had a wife and a child. I didn't need this. I didn't need this aggravation about, podcast. So the answer is no. I'm done.
The answer is no. And then the last thing before I let you go, the wife and I are doing 3 weeks in Vegas, December and January.
Why?
Why?
3 weeks, you said? You said 3 weeks in Vegas?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll let you explain why.
Well, we had a family trip because there was just a really cheap deal to stay at the Venetian for 4 nights, including flight, and it was like $400 or something like that. I went, okay. Then David Lee Roth announced his residency. So I went, okay, we'll extend the trip. Kiss announced their residency. Okay, cool.
Wait, Kiss? Wait, Kiss is going in there?
Yeah, Kiss is playing like 6 shows or something like that.
Okay, all right. Where's Kiss playing?
I think it's Planet Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Which is right by the Venetian, so that's not too bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
and then Roth, we got tickets to the first 2 Roth shows, and then he said, hey, I'm retiring. And I jokingly said to my wife, should we extend the trip so that way we can see all 5 Roth shows? And she said, sure. And I went, really? Oh, okay. So seeing all David Lee Roth shows.
You're that big of a fan of David Lee Roth?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know. I think when he was great with Van Halen, but I don't know. I couldn't sit through that, but okay. All right.
Could you stand through it?
Have you ever seen the Rolling Stones live?
I have not seen the Stones live. I know that that's your number 1 or number 2 band ever.
Well, once you see them, you don't really want to see anybody else except for maybe Springsteen, but everything else to me, is
I mean, there's certain people I could see every tour, like Alice Cooper is one of them, because even if it's the same exact show, it's just a lot to look at. I could see Kiss over and over and over again, even though Paul Stanley may or may not be singing live, per se.
Really? I can ask him about that. I see him at least once a week. He's up at the Beverly Glen Center every day having coffee. And we always talk about pizza and food. He's a big foodie. And I see him I don't see him every day, but I see him up there a lot. I saw Gene there the other day. I think they took a break because they had COVID or something, didn't they?
That is correct.
I saw Gene up at the Glen, and he's a piece of work. But anyway, he's in his own world. But I see him up there all the time. And I see Paul Stanley a lot at the grocery store because we both live in the same neighborhood. I haven't seen him for a while, but every time I see him in the grocery store, I walk to the end of the aisle. I know he's about to walk down, and I yell out to him, who likes to rock and roll all night at grocery shop every day? And he always rolls his eyes. I do it every time. I never get tired of it. Or if I see him in Starbucks, I say the same thing. Who likes to rock and roll? I drink coffee every day. Sometimes he's sitting there with Rod Stewart, It's pretty funny. But anyway,
that is
yeah. So you go right. See, you'll be at the Venetian for 4 days. Then where are you staying?
I think we're moving to Mandalay Bay because that's where the Roth shows are, and then we're going to see which hotels drop to $30 a night because it's after the holiday season. Right. Vegas normal prices and all that. So having 3 weeks there, what's a place or two that we have to go that you could still stand if you're back in Vegas? Okay, first of all, I was out of Vegas for years, and I went back 3 weeks ago to do a corporate gig, and last week or 2 weeks ago to work with Gilbert Gottfried. Okay, I love this new hotel called Resorts World. Oh, yes. It's the Hiltons. There's 3 hotels. There's like a high end, a low end, and then there's a really nice one, and they have some great restaurants in there. Really great restaurants. And you don't have to leave the hotel because it's like you go to Venetian. They're all expensive, but they had a great Italian place, great Mexican place out of LA. That was great. But where I played with Gilbert, and this is really inexpensive, it might be funny. It might be fun for you to stay. We stayed at the Plaza Hotel downtown, which is one of the original hotels. The Biff from Back to the Future hotel. I know. Was that the Biff? Okay. Yeah. Well, right across the street is the El Cortez, which Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky had, which of course it still has the bones. It's nice. But what's great about the Plaza Hotel, I don't call it a low rent hotel. It's a nice hotel. Great little pizza stand. It's from Brooklyn. Great little pizza place. And Oscar Steakhouse, which is magnificent. Oh. With the greatest happy hour. And right across the street is a new hotel called Circa. It's on Fremont Street. And when people say you can't use the word retard anymore, it's not politically correct, walk down Fremont Street and tell me you can't use that word. It's like, it makes Dave and Buster's look like the Waldorf Astoria, okay? It is really mind-boggling. But there's a new hotel called Circa, which has an incredible Jewish deli. And right down there also is a really cool place called Triple George Grill. I used to go with the mayor. But even better, and I haven't gone to it, I can't believe I was there for 2 days, is the Mob Museum. It's right that's downtown. Where my wife and I got married. We got married at the Mob Museum. You did, really? Yeah. Oh, so you know about it? Yeah. Honestly. It's cool. You get married in the courtroom room. Oh, wow, that's good. I never went to the Neon Museum either. Did you do that with all the neon signs? That's right, we went for the Tim Burton museum exhibit that they had. I saw that years ago. Yeah. Where did I see that? It's New York. But anyway, so where would I go? Look, I'm not, it seems like Vegas pretty well. But I love staying at the Plaza. If you want to be downtown with all that action, it makes you feel good about yourself. Well, I thought I was bald. I thought I was fat. I thought I was ugly. I thought I was underdressed. These people could go to Ross, and Ross would say, "We can't dress you for any less than this. You win. Checkmate. Bingo. You're a winner." Yeah, that's what else can I recommend? The Venetian's great. Have you ever been in there? Yes. Beautiful hotel. Yeah, what else? And I don't know what else to tell you. You've given me plenty right there. So the bottom line for the umpteenth time is I love your book. Hope to see you do stand-up live in some form in the future. Looking forward to that second book because let's face it, you're going to write that second book. Yeah. So who did a better interview than me? Don't tell me Ollie Joe Prater. Who's better than me? We've been dead for a long time, but this was like brilliant. This is great. Well, who else answered questions before you even asked them? Who does this? Nobody does this. I think I've interviewed 10 people in your book. You were definitely a better interview than Rickles was. Well, Don does a lot of interviews, and so I'm sure that you have to be on the Tonight Show and all these shows, and Letterman. Then he got the Darren show from his basement. This is a big thing for me. I don't think he was that impressed. Plus, he had to go count his money. He had to go do a gig. You know what I'm doing after we get off the phone? I'm pre-boiling my potatoes and making a horseradish mustard dressing for the London broil I'm making for my girlfriend tonight. That's my big day. That's what champions do. That's right. I might work out and what else? That's it. We didn't do much Jew talk, did we? No. We did a lot with it. Whether or not I guess we did. Oh, yeah, I guess we did. Yeah. We talked about your love of Hebrew school, which equals my love of Hebrew school as well.
How many years did you go?
5, I think.
Yeah, me too. And I can't believe I tell my parents to go screw themselves. I can't believe in 6th grade. I'm not going to Sunday morning. I'm not going to Hebrew school. What are you going to do? What are you possibly going to do to me? Except not let me watch television. What are you going to do? I regret the fact that I regret more than giving the finger to Conan's audience. If I could go back in time, I give them the finger again, and I tell my parents to go to hell for doing that to me.
For me, the big issue with the Hebrew school, the 2 issues. One, they don't even teach you how to speak Hebrew. They teach you how. I can't
get that out of my goddamn head.
You can say the prayers, but you have no idea what the prayers mean. That was the first thing. And the second thing is they were never telling you all the cool comedians and musicians that were Jewish. So the thing is, if I was growing up and they were going, hey, look, the Beastie Boys had to do this too.
Right.
You know what? Also had to do this.
I wonder if they do that now. But I retained a lot of the stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Look, I've always worked on Yom Kippur. Matter of fact, I used to go to Yom Kippur. You know, we had an electric menorah in my house. We had matzah, but then we would never have a Christmas tree, but we got a present Christmas morning. My parents were just making up crap, you know.
Yeah.
But boy, did I hate it. And my mother, my daughter had no religious upbringing, and none whatsoever.
Is she still singing, by the way?
Yeah, she's singing to the feds. Her boyfriend just got busted for counterfeiting. Yeah. Good night, folks. God, I should have been born in the Catskills era. No, Natasha Slayton. She's a great singer.
Yeah.
She's a lot like me. Very talented, very good looking, and going nowhere. We're like the anti-Barrymores.
Even when you're not trying to be funny, man, you kill me, Bobby.
I never try to be funny. You know, it's like, and you know, people try to be funny around you. I never tell people what I do. You know, I sometimes get recognized on a plane, and it would embarrass my daughter and my wife and not my girlfriend. You know, I recognize you from somewhere. Did you go to Camp Homowack? And I go, no. And I know you from somewhere. I go, you watch a lot of gay porn? I used to do that. And that shuts them up right away. A lot of gay porn. Or if it's a woman, they go, we lived together. You were so drunk in those days, they don't remember something you're going around. And that shuts them up. The rest of the plane trip's a little uncomfortable for my family, but it made me feel good. You should try that sometime, but nobody will ever recognize you. So it doesn't matter.
Mr. Slutskin, thank you for your
time. Thank you. I didn't want to put that in the book because you were waiting for that, weren't you?
Hey, it may or may not have been written down in notes.
Okay. Well, you know, I didn't want to put that in the book, but my name is officially always Slayton. I never changed it. Thank God my father changed it. And, you know, my brother goes, I can't believe you put that in the introduction. Well, I don't care if people know that dad's. My mother wouldn't marry him unless he changed his name from Slutskin. It's okay. But I never told people that as a kid. Now I couldn't care less. It makes no difference. What do I care? All right.
There you go. Thank you so much.
There you go, Darren.
Time. We'll get
like your son. Watch how you're going. Whatever that means. And shalom. And yeah. And when we do book 2, we'll talk again. Okay?
Paltrocast.